Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswata Devi Gauravani Prachadane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatadesha Tarane Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Gaurava Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. As Mukunda Maharaj mentioned this morning, when Srila Prabhupada passed away, everybody was shocked. Now they all knew that he was very sick, and there was always this idea that he would pass away because he was getting weaker and weaker. And if one were to look at his physical condition at that time, it was not very good. He was very thin and very weak, so it looked inevitable. But the devotees always felt that somehow he would just go on living. And so when he did pass away, it was very shocking for everybody, in spite of the fact that it was, you could say, logically, that wasn't what was supposed to happen. So everybody was very surprised. And of course, some of the responsible devotees and GBCs had interviews with Prabhupada ahead of time. In case you do pass away, then what do we do about this? What do we do about that? Etc. So they made inquiries about different things. So there was some sort of preparation. But nevertheless, it was very shocking for all the devotees when it actually happened. Of course, we know that this is inevitable. There is a avirbhav and a tirobhav for all the acharyas, and they stay for some time on this earth. They do their work of preaching, and then they disappear at a certain point in time. So it is definitely inevitable. And Srila Prabhupada also knew this because he had seen what had happened with Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. He had lived, he had preached, and then at a certain point he also disappeared. Now what Prabhupada learned from that is also very important. He saw how after the disappearance of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, that the mission that he had established fell apart after about 10 years. And Prabhupada didn't want that to happen with his mission. He knew definitely he would also disappear, but he didn't want the same thing to happen to his organization, ISKCON. So he tried to make some arrangements by which this would not happen. So one of the things, of course, he did was he established the governing body commission to take the place of one leader leading the movement after his disappearance. When Prabhupada was alive, he was the spiritual leader. He was also the managerial leader of everything. And then he established the governing body commission, or the GBC, to act on his behalf. Then with his disappearance, then it was the GBC who acted as the final spiritual authority and managerial authority. So that was the system he set up in order to prevent what had happened to the organization of his own guru, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. So this is what he established. So he made some preparation for the continuance of his mission. So that is always a problem, how to continue after the main person of the movement, the Acharya, disappears. And we see that not only within the Gaudiya Sampradaya, also within all types of organizations, spiritual organizations or other. After the main leader disappears, there is a problem because his physical presence is no longer there. And that creates a big vacuum. So how to create some continuity there is a big problem for all organizations. And we see it as being a problem for ISKCON also, how to continue the movement as if Prabhupada were present, but he's not present, so what do we do? So obviously it's never going to be the same. So we have to make the best use arrange whatever we can and try to come up with some acceptable solution to this problem. So fortunately, ISKCON has continued now for quite a surprising number of years, in spite of all the difficulties that we have had. And it's a big test. Most organizations, they will fail after 10 or 20 years, after the disappearance of the founder. But our organization has gone on long beyond that, up to 50 years. So it is remarkable that has happened. And we don't see that with other organizations, but it's happened with ISKCON. So we made it this far. So that is pleasing to Srila Prabhupada, that we'd be able to continue this far as a united movement, and we've also continued to increase. So we've increased in many ways in terms of books and devotees and temples, etc. So we've accomplished something. But of course there's always the future. There's the next 100 years, and the next 200 years, and the next 500 years, and the next 1,000 years, what's going to happen. And we cannot predict, because we were not going to be here. And the society is going to be completely different. The world is completely different from what it was 50 years ago when Prabhupada was preaching. It's completely different. The situation is different, the people are different, the way they think is different, the way they talk is different, everything is different. And so the whole society changes very rapidly now. And what it's going to be like in 20 years or 50 years, we cannot even predict. But nevertheless, the movement of Krishna consciousness established by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself is eternal. So it has to go on somehow or other. It's just a matter how it goes on, and do we have the ability to keep this movement together, which was the desire of Srila Prabhupada, to continue this one movement, ISKCON, into the future for thousands of years. So if we can manage to do that, then we're successful. That is pleasing to Srila Prabhupada. So all the devotees have to keep that in their minds. We have our individual responsibility to develop our bhakti, our devotion. At the same time, we have this other responsibility to show our gratitude to Srila Prabhupada by somehow keeping this movement together. So however we can do it, that is pleasing to Srila Prabhupada. So we have these two responsibilities. One's the individual, and one is for the movement, in order to please Srila Prabhupada. So Prabhupada, of course, said concerning his own spiritual master, after he had disappeared, they would celebrate Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's disappearance day and appearance day every year with some nice ceremonies. But in one of his homilies, he said, what is the use of all the fruit and flowers and all the words you're saying? Because you didn't keep his movement together. It dispersed into many little groups. So what is the use of all the glorification? So somehow or other, this is the responsibility of the devotees now and the devotees in the future, to keep the movement together somehow or other. That is what will be pleasing to Srila Prabhupada. That's how we can glorify him. Hare Krishna.